Oliver Fade Takes It There contains strong language, intense violence, and is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome. This is Oliver Fade, and I'm bringing you the podcast that speaks the truth about the streets.
What you doing on that turf? What you doing on that turf?
Hi, welcome to another episode of Oliver Fade Takes It There. And today I have a guest by the name of Yuri Lane. He's a friend of mine, musician, beatboxer, and he's different from the other guests because Yuri, he's not necessarily your gang banger and hoodlum, but he has a special perspective that prompted me to have him on the show. So Yuri, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Oliver. It's good to be a part of this important show discussing violence in the streets of America.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Yuri, about where you're from.
Yeah. So I was born in Zierikzee, Holland. My mom's Dutch. My dad grew up in New York and swooped her up in Holland. And they moved, after I was born in Holland, they moved to New York, but then to San Francisco. So I'm the child of the Haight-Ashbury. My parents were both hippies. My mom, a violinist. My dad, a visual artist. So
wow.
I grew up in San Francisco in the heart of kind of the countercultural revolution of hippies, and San Francisco was this special place where you could be who you wanted to be, love who you wanted to love, and I grew up in the heart of the hate and had friends from all different ethnic backgrounds.
Amazing.
And that really kind of set the stage for me to be who I am today. I started out as a professional actor at age 11. So I started modeling. I thought
I knew you. I don't know any of this.
No, you don't know me. I mean, so I started acting professionally. I started doing theater, television, commercials, and that was a really big part of my life. Ever since I was in front of a mirror, I just was like, oh yeah, I just loved to perform. So
really cool. Real quick, just what commercial were you in? Or,
if Nintendo, you care to share.
Really?
Game Boy.
Oh my God.
Kool-Aid Coolers, Twix.
That's
Levi's,
so cool.
Wall Street Journal.
Oh my God. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, doing national commercials, like it paid for 2 years of acting college. So, I in a certain point in my life, like in high school, I was kind of the breadwinner of the family.
Wow.
So I was kind of balling
during that time. Who was your manager?
So I had an agency. I didn't have a manager.
Oh, okay.
I'm still looking for a manager after all these years, but I have a Stars agency.
Okay.
I still get residual checks, for like 1 cent.
Royalties.
Royalties, yeah,
awesome.
Royalties. I started doing television, and I did an episode of Party of Five, which was a show back in the late 90s, and then I did several episodes of Nash Bridges, which was sort of the San Francisco version of Miami Vice with Cheech and Don Johnson.
Cool.
So that was really cool, and did some films, and was in this film short called Compulsory Breathing that made its way onto a film festival on PBS. So that was really cool, and I got to beatbox my character beatbox. So.
Is that how you got into beatboxing?
No, I got into beatboxing by being a b-boy, going to the Boys and Girls Club,
really?
Breakdancing, and every day, and I just started listening
So
to hip hop.
your first element of hip hop was breakdancing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a breaker. I was really influenced by my uncle, who was a mime, and so he would come and visit and do his pantomime, and like if people who are hip to what breakdance is just takes from all these different dance art forms, including kung fu and capoeira, and so like all these little isolations, that's pantomime. So I was like, so I saw my uncle, what he was doing. I was like, I got to do that. And then like I started listening to this radio show in San Francisco, KPOO 89.5, San Francisco. Every Saturday night, they used to play hip hop.
Okay.
And that's the first time I ever heard it. And I was hooked, just straight hooked. I mean, I
took
heard
over.
Buffy from the Fat Boys,
Yeah.
and Dougie Fresh, and kind of I started organically just started making a bunch of sounds when I was a kid, like just playing with your action figures and everything, giving each little action figure a sound effect.
Sure,
and that
sure.
led to just kind of trying to repeat the sounds of the radio.
Yeah, I remember
And started beatboxing,
as
just
a kid.
making sounds, and I never stopped.
Wow.
And so, but like beatboxing definitely was a way of not getting beat up, like kids would be like, try to bully me, and I'd like, and be like, leave the white boy alone. So that was kind of it's like, I'm going to use it. And also just,
that was literally your weapon.
it was my weapon was music, man. My weapon was the beatbox.
Very cool.
Which is such a great thing because it's free. All you need is imagination and a sense of rhythm. And, a lot of times kids didn't have a boombox or didn't have a record player, and people were freestyling, and I would drop the beat.
Yeah, that's how it goes. That's cool.
but,
And how was the neighborhood, the schools you were in? Were they rough? Were they, regular?
So I went to public school in San Francisco.
Okay.
I went to this, it was first called Dudley Stone and then called William R. D'Avila. And it was super diverse. And, kids from El Salvador, from China.
Black kids, white kids, Hispanics.
white kids. I definitely was in the minority.
Yeah.
So that there were just, less of me and more kids of color. And so that kind of shaped me a little bit, not being the majority. Right.
Okay.
And not just being exposed to just a different culture but my neighborhood was in Cole Valley, which was pretty nice. It's a little bit, it's very close to the Haight-Ashbury. But that was kind of one of the first neighborhoods in San Francisco that the rents kind of went up. But, we were in a, 6-bedroom Victorian house paying like $300 a month. And so I had kids from the neighborhood, that I was friends with. But the Haight-Ashbury was definitely a lot of homelessness, a lot of people that didn't survive through the hippie years and got hooked on drugs.
Oh shit.
But it was different because they were like, we kind of knew who the bums were, I didn't even call them that, but they were like, we knew who they were, right? And then
so you see them as people, not as
see them as people,
not as like a bum. It's
no,
more like,
no.
yeah.
And I was exposed to homelessness in a very different way, and it was just part of my daily life, And so I wasn't going to give money to everybody, But as I got older, and if I had money, then you give,
help
you just
out.
give, you just help out, you give. But it was definitely as the 80s and crack and started coming into the cities and speed, you get a lot of teenagers that would come from all around California and different parts, or they would leave home. They would leave their wealthy homes in Marin County and come and try to pedal on the streets with their North Face jacket. I was like, what you talking about? Like your jacket's more than my whole wardrobe. And I really grew up with my parents. My dad was a visual artist, my mom violinist, and we were struggling. At a certain point, we were on food stamps. But I always knew that I had a sense of privilege being a white kid, know.
Sure.
But I know what it feels like to not have food in the fridge.
Yeah.
And to be, just be like, wow, just have a whole dinner and be thankful for the things like shelter, like food, those essentials.
Right.
And so I had other friends that, were a lot more well off than me. But as I, as I got older, things stabilized, but it was always kind of month to month. That's when I was able to kind of become
and
an individual.
How old were you when at this point?
I was like 8 or 9
old.
years old. And then when I was like 15, then I started to make money myself and started doing theater, main stage theater and television, and that kind of helped, help out the family, just groceries and things like that.
Just to bring it back to the whole homeless, there's a lot of homelessness around where you're growing up. Did that have any violence or things of that nature happening too? Because a lot of poverty, brings that.
There was a lot of violence connected with people who were high on drugs and they needed a fix. So, a lot of petty crimes.
So like robberies? Things like
robberies.
Not necessarily gangs, more so in the stealing.
As I got into high school, I definitely, I had friends that weren't in gangs, but that had family members in gangs, and so there
are gangs.
Oh yeah, definitely, there are definitely gangs. I had friends that lived in Fillmore District, and there was definitely some gangs that represented Fillmore Street. It's a street in San Francisco, and then there's Hunters Point, which was near San Francisco Giants Stadium at the time, Candlestick Park, and so these were neighborhoods that were continued to be neglected. Yeah, and not a lot of opportunity, and losing a sense of community as African Americans started to be pushed out. And now San Francisco is very different than what it was like growing up, as all major American cities are. But it's like the division between the rich and the poor is so much bigger than it was when I was growing up in San Francisco. But I definitely was with friends that were people of color, and they would get fucked with, by the cops. Okay. They would be messed with. So I got to see, it really, at an early age, of like, it all kind of depends on what you look like, and you'll be stereotyped. You're a gang
So
member.
even though that's your friends, you're basically all in one, but they're getting discriminated against because of skin color.
Yeah, because of skin color. And so, I never really had a problem. I mean, I definitely became street savvy, growing up in San Francisco, you got to be aware of your surroundings. I kind of knew what it felt like to be sexually harassed, like a lot of, because, it was the, one of the capitals of the gay world at the time.
Right.
And I would get, just get harassed or whatever on the bus and stuff like that. During that time when I was like 12 years old, there was a kid that was kidnapped, Kevin Collins. And that, remember when they started putting missing kids on milk cartons?
Milk cartons, yeah.
Right, so that started in San Francisco. I mean, that Kevin Collins was the first person.
Wow.
And I happened to be waiting at this bus stop to go to a sports camp. And that bus stop was where that kid, Kevin Collins, was kidnapped.
Oh, shit.
So, like a sense of, like, safety, right? It was so different back then. Yeah. Right? You know, like our parents would just let us get on the bus.
Right.
I was 9 years old, I get on the bus.
Absolutely.
Right? And I'm not letting my daughter get on the bus at age 9. And now I let her, ride the CTA, but I still I don't want her coming back late night.
Yeah.
It's just not, to me, it's not safe, and being a young woman. So that those things are very different when I was younger. But I don't know, it's like I'm always wrestling of you need to also give your kid freedom and
Let them live.
let them live and let them experience what being fearful or being aware of your surroundings. But I think she has an idea, when she's on the train, if it's empty or it's a sketchy situation, she'll just get off the train. But going back to San Francisco, it was definitely a great place to grow up and just be exposed to so much different music and culture and food and just so many iconic things come from San Francisco.
I mean, it sounds like you lived and had a very interesting childhood, being an actor and getting into hip hop, and the neighborhood's diverse. So I wanted to jump into a tough subject for you.
Yeah.
Your friend, JoJo.
Yeah, Joshua Dillon White. That's right.
Why don't you tell us about your friend?
So JoJo, I became very good friends with him middle school. We didn't go to the same middle school, but we lived in the same neighborhood. He actually, the house that he lived was right next door to where the Grateful Dead, the band Grateful Dead, that's where they had their first house, their communal house. So it was kind of like, and JoJo was just a really, really talented basketball player, and he had friends from all walks of life, just like everybody. Like everybody knew JoJo, and we became really good friends. Was really into basketball and sports, and he was definitely a big supporter. He would tease me and keep me in check.
Oh yeah.
I just when I got into acting and he wouldn't let my head get too big.
Oh nice. Okay. So he's a good friend.
Yeah, he's a good friend. He was that person that everybody has a friend that's gonna tell you what you don't want to hear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think as we get older, you have less and less friends like that.
Yeah.
That and JoJo was complicated. He would start fights. He was into raising some shit.
Okay.
His parents were radicals. They were protesting. They were not into what was going on in the country from the 60s on.
Okay.
His father. His stepdad, but from his first memories, that was his dad, and he was Irish, but had this really, really Irish revolutionary, radical sense. And then his mother worked with pregnant teens, and so but he was all into materialism and getting the best, the Nikes, all that stuff, brands, and really into materialism. And then all of a sudden, kind of after high school, he started to really engage and sort of learn from what his parents taught him. Just started reading different revolutionary books.
Okay.
And he just got into it. And so, sometimes I felt like I wasn't in the right. Sometimes I would be in a situation with JoJo where it's this is kind of sketchy. Whose car is this? Oh shit, this is a stolen car. Fuck that, I'm out. I was I got a career. I don't want to be caught in a stolen car. You know what I mean? They were going on some they weren't out. They were just going on some robbery spree. But someone stole a car, and I'm whose car is this? Oh no, we just tripwired this car. We're about to go over the bridge. I'm y'all can go. I'm
rowdy.
I'm good.
Rowdy.
Yeah, it's so into it.
You guys are rowdy.
But JoJo became friends with this whole crew of hip hop artists. And he became really close with a crew of different rappers and DJs and producers, and the group was called Bored Stiff. And so he
Bored
wasn't
Stiff?
and they're really right now they've just recently, about a year ago, came out with an album, first time in 20 years.
Oh wow.
And they're really when you think of Bay Area legendary groups like Souls of Mischief, Bored Stiff was in that same category.
Cool,
Dale the Funky
cool.
Homo Sapien, Casual, lots of the groups of that time. And so he was a big promoter. He was always at the shows promoting them.
Okay.
And I became friends with them. and just like got so into hip hop and got so into their style of hip hop. And Board Stiff, the whole crew, were there originally 6 members, Colombian, Japanese, African American, white, Mexican,
The diversity.
just super. It was like
super cool.
really representative of San Francisco.
Yeah, that's super cool.
And Board Stiff was this whole crew, and I, at first they were a bit like, who is this white boy, and then they kind of got to know me and like, oh, he's an actor, he beatboxes, and my
Okay.
dad was a big jazz fanatic, so I got into jazz, and then got into hip hop. Through jazz, and just saw the connection, like listening to Gangstar and like, oh my gosh, like jazz and hip hop, and jazz and hip hop are related to each other. Like hip hop is the grandson of jazz.
Amazing.
Jazz is hip hop or hip hop is jazz. So my friend Equipto Ilyich was one of the members of Board Stiff. His dad was a jazz DJ. KPFA.
Oh, cool.
And so he was like, really, he knew, like when I started mentioning like Charles Mingus and Miles Davis and all these different jazz artists, he knew what I was talking about because his dad was like,
nice.
interviewing different jazz artists. So I just got really into it. And we used to, growing up in San Francisco, his dad was a contractor, and they built a home in Santa Cruz in Boulder Creek, which is, about an hour and a half from San Francisco, and it was just like this paradise, like with a swimming pool and just like beautiful redwoods, and it was like, so I used to go with JoJo, and we would, get in his car, get in his Honda, and drive up to Santa Cruz, to the Santa Cruz Mountains.
Nice.
And, smoking weed was definitely a big part of our lives at that time. So we'd smoke a joint and listen to Peter Tosh and Bob Marley and all the, jazz and, reggae legends. And we just had a lot of deep conversations about life.
This is your, was he your best friend? It
Yeah,
sounds like your
he
best
was
friend.
he was my best friend, and why I kind of consider him my best friend is because, like I said before, he was that person that was, we'll just tell it like it is.
Yeah.
And that he wasn't
Hell
perfect.
Yeah.
And that is some of the stuff he did, like I kind of have some regrets. Like he wanted to move in with me at this apartment, but I was like, I don't know, like I've gotten some sketchy situations, and I should have just let him move in, because I ended up growing weed in my apartment. It's like I was concerned because he was dealing weed at the time.
Oh, I got you. But then you're over here growing it.
Yeah, then I was like, not really growing it, just using my closet as a grow room.
Oh, nice.
But what's interesting
personal,
is that
personal.
yeah, the light that I used was the light that from his apartment.
Oh, okay.
When he died. So yeah, I'll kind of tell what happened. It was January 19th, 1996, and JoJo was with Equipto from Board Stiff, Ilyich, and Ilyich had some friends, I think a cousin visiting from Colorado, and they were driving through San Francisco.
This is in San Francisco.
Yeah, this is in San Francisco. Okay. And they were in this neighborhood, Ventura Hill, which is kind of a mix of like there's some gang activity and it's also like nice houses, right? That's what San Francisco is. It's like mixed. Like it's like you turn a corner and it's like, oh, this is very different from this neighborhood, know.
Okay.
And so basically they were this Ilyich's cousin had to go to the bathroom, just stepped out to go to the bathroom in this abandoned train tracks.
Okay.
And this someone saw someone peeing, right? And we to this day we don't know who took his life, but saw this guy peeing, was like, oh, you're just in my neighborhood. So he went up to the car and he was like, said something like, what set you claim? And JoJo was like, no, we ain't in no gang, Yeah, he said, one love, And then this guy took out a gun and said, this is a jack, give up all your shit. And JoJo made the decision to roll up the window and start the car. and he shot through the window, hit him in his shoulder, went to his heart, and died 30 seconds later.
Robbery.
Yeah,
It was a
Jack.
robbery.
I don't even know if it was that. I think it was more like, we don't know. But
It's
I think
almost
it
like
was
they're
like I
starting
think it was
shit.
like it was like someone saw that, oh, this is my neighborhood, you're dissing my neighborhood, you're making a mark on my neighborhood.
Let me
and then
come
went
up with a reason.
Yeah, like, or it could have been someone who was just like, who was in a gang and was trying to like raise his level of like shooting somebody or jacking somebody.
Jojo passed away in the car right away.
Yeah, he passed away in Equipto's arms.
Shit.
And there's, since that time, many songs have been made in dedication to JoJo, a whole album that Board Stiff made.
So real quick, when did you find out?
So I was working in Emporio Armani. Actually, I was working at Emporio Armani in San Francisco.
Okay.
My older sister was the manager of Emporio Armani, and everyone's like, "Oh, were you like working on the floor selling clothes?" I'm like, "No, I was in shipping and receiving.
okay.
Like folding and censoring $1,000 suits." And I got a call from my friend Anthony, who grew up with JoJo, and we were all kind of mutual friends, and just said, "JoJo's dead. He got killed." And I was, in shock. I definitely, it definitely kind of put me in a really dark place. I felt like I was 24 at the time. And just kind of shook my world. And JoJo, the day that he was killed, he in his mailbox was an acceptance letter to go into the teaching program at SF State.
Wow.
So he was kind of like on that path of like,
Wow.
it's time to like get it together. I want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
He'd always work with youth. Like he'd work with special needs kids, like working at the swimming pool. Like, so he had kind of two sides, right? Like he was engaged in like, some dirt, but like really always
He was wild, but
he was wild, but
also
he
like-
was really like that person that was questioning life. Like, why are we here?
Yeah,
Why are we like into so much materialism, and why are people homeless? Asking these questions, and being confrontational, but at the same time, he had people from all walks of life who were truly his friends. So when he died, the year previous to that, he went to Cuba and had a real impact on his life. And so when he died, a lot of people got together, including all the members of Board Stiff, and we said, well, let's do something for JoJo, and not let his passing be in vain. And so we raised money to all go to Havana through Global Exchange. We went to Cuba.
Wow.
We brought medical supplies and computers, and we raised all this money. Robin Williams heard about it, and he dedicated his costume from his show Mork and Mindy and raised a bunch of money.
Very cool.
So a lot of people who did not have the financial means to go, we raised the money. So a lot of the people
Very cool.
who were in Board Stiff and different
Yeah.
community members, we all went there.
Wow.
And then, people in Cuba found out about it. Mumi Abu Jamal, who's a political prisoner, who's on death row, he found out about it. Ashira Shakur, Tupac's mother, found out about it. And so a lot of people...
He had a huge impact.
Had a huge impact. Like, we kind of... he's like our prophet of the Haight-Ashbury. And so he left his mark, and he has a really special kind of when he was 12, it's like he had this whole little poem, If I Could Change the World. And so we had a shirt, If I Could Change the World, I would feed all the homeless. I would, make sure that everybody has somebody in their life, just a really beautiful thing. So he was about positivity. So we all went to Cuba, And kind of fast forward, they dedicated a school and also home. So it's a school that you can go to because a lot of people in Havana, they don't have their parents abandon them, and they have nowhere to live. So they had this school and then also a place where people could live called the Jojo White Center. And they, of course, in Havana, they just named it after him. So if you go to Cuba, it's still there. It's called the Jojo White Center.
Wow.
So it's a school and a place where people can, who are young and they don't have a home, they can live there.
This is blowing my mind right now.
I know. So his impact is still being felt, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when we went out there, then people in Cuba, heard about his story, and they are asking questions like, why is your country so violent?
Yeah.
Why are people being killed all the time? But what's interesting about Havana, it was oh, it's this beautiful communist country, and everyone has health care, but we also saw a lot of people how can you get me the fuck out of here? I don't like living under Fidel Castro.
Yeah.
I want to go to the United States, right? And we brought all Jojo's shoes. So the story goes we brought his shoes. He was a size 11, and through the course of our 2 weeks, those pairs of shoes made their way to different people until people who were trying to, because people didn't have, shoes. People are driving, 1950s, 40s cars,
Okay.
right? And there are people who are doctors and lawyers. They're taxi cab drivers. And they're oh, there's no racism in Cuba. Oh, no. So when we were hanging out with and different MCs and different artists and musicians, which was incredible, the music, the worst street musician could be playing a club in Chicago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was just whoa. But if you are light skinned, they will not mess with you. But if you are Afro-Cuban, we got fucked with all the time.
Wow.
When we were with people who had a dark complexion.
Yeah.
So, in every corner of the earth, there's racism.
Yeah, yeah.
And, but that was really impactful. So, then after that, I kind of was in a little bit of depression, but I had other friends be and always having that voice.
How did you deal with your depression from losing a best friend?
Well, part of it was going to Cuba, a year later.
So that helped.
That really helped. And then having a community of friends that were so impacted by his death, I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
And that
we
we
kind
could
of
have
in this together.
Yeah,
so.
we're in this together, and that I would hear his voice, hear his voice saying, "Hey man, pursue your dreams. Don't sit on the couch." I did go to the doctor and said I'm depressed and gave me some Valium.
Is that what?
But I
was the
convinced
solution?
her, I gave him some Valium, and that was bad because Valium just And then eventually I was I realized that I was kind of going, Jojo wouldn't want this. So I heard his voice get off the fucking couch, go play basketball, don't wallow, and live your life to the fullest.
Yeah.
So. He always is he literally
and it seems like that's
I think
what
about
you've
him
been doing.
at least once a week, I was thinking about him today, this morning, just because we were going to talk about this
happened
subject.
how long ago?
January 19th, 1996.
96. So you think about him every week. You're thinking about him today.
Yeah,
this isn't going anywhere.
No, it's not going anywhere.
It's part of your life.
It's part of my life. And I lost contact with Jojo's parents, but then a couple of years ago, I got back in contact with his dad. Unfortunately, we would call it Mount Joe, because not only did that place in Santa Cruz stay in all of his friends' lives, people would, who didn't, his friends from all walks of life, right? They grew up and had kids, and they would take their kids to this place in Santa Cruz. So it became this place where people who were suffering from violence in San Francisco, who were suffering from poverty and the problems of living in the city.
It's almost like a healing center.
It was a healing center. It was a place where people go and heal and learn how to swim. Like they didn't have swimming access to
Oh,
swimming
I
pools,
love
and I
swimming.
learned how to swim.
Swimming
So
is
like
the shit, yeah.
yeah. So and
That's
they had
awesome.
there was a waterfall and there's a diving board. And it was just
Oh,
paradise.
come on.
And like a lot of kids that never been outside of the city. Like
Yeah.
and just a lot of
that's
times
life,
in Chicago,
that's life-changing.
like people who live in Chicago, they've never been outside of Chicago.
Right.
They've never seen stars. So like there's people who have never
Never
seen
been
stars.
downtown.
Never been downtown, you know? So that was like, and then hearing all through these years, all of his friends stayed very close. I moved from San Francisco in 2003.
Okay.
So it's been 20 years. So I'm a Chicagoan through and through now, you know, but
So almost 30 years ago, your best friend gets killed.
Yeah,
which you
almost,
still
yeah.
deal with.
Yeah.
But obviously, there was somewhat of a positive impact that he did.
Yeah. Which was
even
really,
after.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's pretty amazing.
It is. It really is. And that he, you know, he created in death. His parents created this space for healing.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, there are these fires in California. And the fire
that had an effect?
took out.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and actually, my JoJo's dad bought a work of my dad's, and it burned down in the fire.
Oh my God.
So that's how we got in contact. Like, oh, you know, and then last year his dad passed away from cancer, but I got to talk to him, and you know, so a lot of people were devastated that place of healing is gone.
Yeah.
You know, and they maybe want to rebuild, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But there was over 20 years of that place being this safe place where people could go and swim and just be with their families and not have to worry about.
I mean, maybe this
city.
story can inspire people to, you know, when tragedy hits, you could turn it into something positive too.
Yeah, and you see it a lot in Chicago. You know, I mean, people have been, you know, this is a city where it is, you know, it is. It's a city of neighborhoods, but you know, like there's parts of Chicago where it's so dangerous.
Oh yeah.
And violence is so prevalent, and it's not gotten better; it's gotten worse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was meaning to ask you about this. Now that you're in Chicago and you have a daughter, raising a child in Chicago, and you're not in like a gang neighborhood, it still has an effect on you. So what is that like?
Well, I'll kind of go back. When we first moved to Chicago, we were living in Bucktown, but we were on West Dickens, just a little very close to Western, and so it was kind of like still there's a lot of gang activity on Western, you know, in kind of Humboldt Park area, but where we were in Bucktown, right on West Dickens, just right off a Western. My wife Rachel, who's a professor at UIC, we went to UIC to check out this guy on the Blue Line, and went and saw DJ Spooky, who was talking about hip hop and had actually Cool Herc as
cool.
Talking about records and music, and then we got off the train, and then we were walking into our house that we were renting. And Rachel was like opening up the mailbox, and we walked by some dudes that were standing on the corner.
Some gangbangers.
Yeah.
Some gangsters
that were standing in the corner. I was like, this doesn't look right. You know what I mean?
And this is your block. This is where
This is my
live.
block. You know, it's nice homes.
So you
and
didn't
stuff.
realize it was gang.
I knew like a couple. If you go a couple blocks west or east, you are in a neighborhood that has gang activity.
But you didn't know your block would have.
Yeah, I just knew on this corner, I didn't know that this particular. I mean, I did see there was a lot of dogs, like too many dogs, and you know, kind of left outside for many hours. But you know, people, they're just bad pet owners everywhere. But and they were, you know, they're either Puerto Rican or Mexican. I'm not really sure.
Hispanic neighborhood.
Yeah, Hispanic neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
And so Rachel was opening up the mail slot, and then I heard bop 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 bop,
Oh, okay.
And I knew that was gunshots because I'd heard gunshots before, right? And growing up in San Francisco, and just I know what a gunshot sounds like. But my wife Rachel had just been in Israel, Palestine, and so people in Israel and Palestine, like they shoot off guns, like during weddings and stuff like that. So she oh, someone's just shooting off a starter gun or whatever. And I was like, and then all of a sudden I saw people scattering and running. And then and I didn't look over because I was like, I don't want to have any part of this. But then I saw just all these bodies scatter, and I saw the looks on their faces. And I said, oh yeah, someone just got shot. And then someone just said, I heard someone say, oh, that person just killed me. Actually specifically said, nigga just killed me.
So he was
That
shot.
was the voice.
Whoever said that was shot.
Was shot, yeah. And I was like, and Rachel was like,
This is
oh,
your-
that's like, I was like, Rachel, get in the fucking house.
How long were you in Chicago by this time?
Couple months.
So you're already experiencing some gangster shit.
Yeah, and I witnessed somebody getting killed.
Wow.
I didn't look over because I just knew.
So
I didn't want to get shot.
Did the ambulance show up, or they just left? They might have driven themselves or something.
Yeah. And then the cops came about 30 minutes later, and then immediately that same night there was a vigil, candles. I knew someone was dead. And then it was weird. I had like this, and then for the next 48 hours, I kept hearing that voice. Of that dead
So
person.
he did die.
He did die. Oh yeah, they killed him.
Damn.
That was his last
he
words.
said it.
Yeah, he said it.
Oh no.
So then I heard his voice, a couple times, like, whoa, So, I mean, I wasn't traumatized by it, but I was like, damn.
I think you were, just not on the level that.
Yeah, I was in shock
Some other
a little
people
bit, but
could
I
be.
was also like, to my wife, I was like, get in the house.
Yeah.
I knew something. I mean, I was like, this
So
is
now
bad.
you're
She
experiencing.
was like, oh, no, get in the house.
Yeah.
And then hours later, we knew that someone died.
It's terrible.
And so then, like a couple weeks later, I was on the 49 Western bus,
Okay.
and I was just got into a conversation with this young guy, maybe 10 years younger than me, and I said, "Hey, if I wanted to get a gun, like what would it take?" He said, "I can get off at the next stop and get you a gun." And this is in 2003. I'm like,
Welcome to Chicago.
the access you can get a gun so easy, but you can't get to a grocery store, or you can't get to.
Wow.
You can't get.
When you put it like that, it sounds terrible.
You can't get into a
But
nice
you're right.
neighborhood school.
You're right.
So access to education and access to health services and mental health services are still to this day. I feel like we're reaching a kind of a new.
It's worse.
A new positive.
It's worse now.
It is. So
Now
going
it's
back
not little guns. Now it's bigger guns.
now it's bigger guns. And
Longer
what's-
clips.
Yeah, and what's a trip to me is like when JoJo was killed in '96. Then a couple years later, they put in the assault weapons ban. Right. Mm-hmm. And there were no mass shootings when they put the assault weapons ban. It just dropped. And then when it came back, and you have access to weapons of war, which have no place.
Well, some people debate that it's not the weapon; it's the people.
Yeah, it's the weapon.
But it's
If you have access
harder,
to the weapon,
It's harder to commit that type of mass shooting.
Yeah, I have a friend
with a smaller gun.
Yeah, it is. I have.
You
a
can
friend
still get a big gun. It's just not as easy.
No, I mean, if you just automatic weapons, why do you need an automatic weapon if you were saying you need it for hunting or for protection? No, you don't need a gun that can shoot.
Well, you need it to do a mass shooting.
Yeah, you need to do a mass shooting or to terrorize a community, or if you're in a gang,
It's for war.
It's for war. And
It's
so,
for war.
People who are suffering, who have been victims of gun violence, or a family member of a victim,
Yeah.
or a family member or of a perpetrator, they're all affected by it. And
Right.
so, I have a friend, Paris Reed, who's a beatboxer.
Okay.
He's moved to Atlanta, but he said he came back like 5 or 6 months ago to his neighborhood. Lived on the south side of Chicago.
Okay.
And he just said, "Oh my gosh, it's gotten so much worse." Unfortunately,
in 5 years.
like he's been gone for a couple of years, and he just like people like at the barber shop where he grew up, like now they lock the door, they keep the shades down because there's so many robberies and so much guns, just people shooting out the street lights. So
shooting out the street lights? Oh, okay. That's a little different from when I grew up.
Yeah, shooting out the street lights so then the cops won't come because it's
There's
dark.
other ways to, shut the street lights off.
Yeah.
You don't have to shoot them.
Yeah, you don't have to shoot them. And so he was like, and he called me the other day, and I'm kind of a mentor to him. He's 25 years younger than me, and he lost his sister to violence. I'm not to a domestic. Something happened. They don't know, but his sister's dead.
Damn.
So and they can't pay for the funeral, and so it's just Chicago is still the most segregated city in America. Right?
Interesting.
And I remember when I was working as a teaching artist on 72nd at a high school. Southside. And I was talking to a security guard. Because you can find out a lot about what's going on in the pulse of the city is you talk to security guards. You talk to different people who are... who are working
close from around there.
Right. I just say, hey, what's up? Why is it so easy to access guns? He's like, well, let me tell you, I know people that they know when the train's coming with all the guns.
Wow.
And they have
that's
some little
that's
deal
some
with the security.
How do you know when the train with the guns?
Yeah, and the security is who are, always making sure that no one breaks in. They happen to be away. And then they just go and hundreds of guns are in the city.
Interesting.
And it's this is conspiracy. No,
it's not a conspiracy.
It started out in Los Angeles, when the riots, people bring guns into the city because they want chaos and violence and to keep people down, right? Again, there's, access to weapons, right? You should make it really, really hard for you to access a gun. Just like it's hard to get a driver's license, but it's really easy to get a gun.
It's harder to get a driver's license than it is to get a gun license.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
that's
that Chicago
fact.
and Illinois is a place where, we're trying to combat gun violence, but you go to Indiana,
a car is
Wisconsin.
also a weapon, you run somebody over, etc.
Yeah.
But it's harder to get a driver's license.
Yeah. I think also I was talking to a friend of mine, Corey, and he works at our synagogue, and he was in a gang 20 years ago, but he said that there was a code when he had to get at least a B to slang on the corner. His higher ups were like, you got to do good in school. If you're failing, you can't serve on the corner. You can't sell drugs on the corner. Chicago.
Oh, wow. I haven't heard of
this. And now he said there isn't a code. So you have a lot of gangs.
Absolutely, yeah.
There is no code.
All broken up.
It's just like before, I want to kill that person in that gang. No, you can't. You won't.
Right.
And
you
now
need
they're
permission to hold a gun.
Yeah.
Now everybody's got a gun.
And so you're no, actually, I'm going to, I want to kill this person. Oh, okay. How much? $500. Just.
Right.
So he was just breaking that down to me.
Yeah. $500 you could get somebody killed.
It's
crazy.
And I just remember I went to Israel and Palestine and was in places where it looks just bombed out. And then my wife's from Detroit. You look at, and it looks like a bombed out third world country, right? When Martin Luther King was assassinated, the house in which, when the riots happened, when he died, still hasn't been built up. So we're just really far behind. I think that our new mayor, he knows what's up. He's a person of color. He's a black man. He worked at CPS as a teacher. And so I think he has a real understanding of what needs to be done.
I hope something.
Yeah, I think
starts
already
moving
already
to
things
change
are moving in a
around.
positive direction. I mean, that's a whole larger question when we talk about, violence. Like America, like what's the number one culture that we promote in America? If we really want to talk about it, it's violence. Violence. We see it on television.
Yeah, check out this podcast.
Check out this podcast.
Violent
It's
podcast.
violent. It's violent. It's violence. But we're talking about how violence is like, it's a big part of American culture.
I mean, we
glamorize it all the time.
We're bringing awareness to not continue to do what we've been doing for decades. And like people like you that can share experiences and like actually see how, a negative thing can be turned into a positive if something's bad happened. But also, let's not let these bad things happen. And I want to bring it back to raising a child here.
Yeah.
You mentioned to me, we were talking the other day, and you mentioned how your daughter wanted to go to the beach. And you're like, no, sorry.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Well,
Why not?
just because,
Why can't she go to the beach and swim?
Once it gets hot in Chicago, summertime, just the rate of gun violence just
Then it
goes
gets
way
hot.
up,
Once it gets hot, it gets hot.
It gets hot, and people just, it
gets hot
start
with
shooting
violence.
each other. Yeah. So, just seeing that image of at the beach,
First day-
somebody did not die, thank God. Everybody.
First day that the beach is open in Chicago, they're shooting. So now your daughter can't be safe.
Yeah. She goes to Lane Tech. They have, the metal detectors. They have tight security. It's a super big school. I do feel that, she's safe in high school, but, it's like when we talk about mass shootings in the United States, which is now everywhere, there's mass shootings all the time.
Yeah.
Right. But in the south side of Chicago, west side of Chicago, there's mass shootings all the time.
Yeah.
Multiple people are
right,
dead, and that's
right.
a mass shooting, but they don't really talk about it, right? And so now,
'Cause it's
a
too
bunch
too
of
normal.
white kids get killed, and
Now it's all over.
it's
the
all over.
news
It's
in
all over the
every
news,
state.
right? And people are talking about it. But even with that, the NRA, the National Rifle Association, and these gun lobbying groups still are just controlling the politicians to make sure that there are no gun regulations and background checks and just and again just promoting violence. We see it on television. We see it.
I don't think it's, let's get violent. You know what I think it is? I think it's just money, man. Like it's it's a money game.
Yeah, they want to make money.
There's a lot of money
Yeah.
involved. Mm-hmm. People are gonna get guns how they're gonna get guns, whether it's cartel or in the streets. Even though it is harder to get an illegal gun than a legal one. If they're legal, it's easy. Okay, you just go but it's still people are gonna get them one way or another.
Yeah. When we hold the politicians that are being paid by gun lobbying groups and by the NRA and by the weapons industry, right?
Yeah.
They're in office and then they're like, well, who is our constituent? Our constituent is that gun lobby group, or is that because they pay me? So I'm going to make sure that there are no gun sense legislation that goes through, right? So again, just talking about I definitely, I want to give my daughter freedom, but I also want to keep her safe. And so
Tough.
I'm just not going to have her.
It's tough.
It's just tough. That's not something.
And that's what I wanted to basically touch on is it's tough even if you're not living in the hood, because you don't live in the hood.
Yeah.
Because you moved. You're no longer in the area.
I'm not in Ukrainian village.
You're not in the area where you saw that guy get shot and killed.
No.
So you're now in a nicer area.
I'm in
You're
Little
not
Italy,
you're
so
not-
I'm not that far away. I'm about a half a mile away from some projects. So I tell my daughter, I don't want you going past 16th.
Sure. Yeah.
You can go in Pilsen, that's cool, but there's certain
But
past
even
dark.
even Pilsen is I mean, you know, it might be up and coming, whatever that means, but it's
being gentrified.
right. No, but it's like there's still gangs,
Yeah.
and people are still getting killed, getting shot in the head,
Yeah.
and AKs are getting shot. Like, it's still the hood, but it's just like
Yeah, we live
raising
in
children.
Little Italy, which is, you know, it's a neighborhood where it's right near a campus, so you get a lot of UIC medical students, but it's also close to the Racine police station. So every single day,
right,
just rolling by,
Right.
you know, cars mashing through.
right.
Police cars going to probably shootings, or, you know, during the pandemic there was a lot of carjacking, and it was happening very close to us, and, you know, so but just like this new generation is just so rough that like, I mean, again, you have people that are kids that are traumatized when they go through a lockdown, or they have someone come in to teach them about what to do if there's a shooter.
That's all stress.
I meess. That's
all
stress. That's not even experiencing a mass shooting, but
that's
it's
not
going
even
through it.
and you're still not even stress. Like, that's a lot of stress in itself, and you still got to study for the test that you're going to take on whatever subject that you're trying to learn in the class that has, you know, cat litter as a backup bathroom for whatever scenario you're in because of a mass shooting. It's ridiculous.
You can have a bulletproof backpack. It's going to help you.
It's ridiculous.
But
I mean, a bulletproof backpack sounds kind of cool, but like,
yeah.
it shouldn't be like your kid needs it to go to school.
Or give weapons to teachers. That's going to really make it better. Are you kidding me? And then also, like, I mean, growing up, we
It's
didn't
like,
have
let's just
police
shoot each other. Let's
we
just
didn't have
shoot each
police
other.
officers in school. And now, you know, they're trying to make some changes to that. But, like,
Is
for
that
the
the
people
solution?
who are feeling,
Is that
no.
the solution?
You-
Everybody gets
to
a gun.
militarize the police and the community that doesn't trust the police, which rightfully so, because they don't feel safe and they don't feel like they're going to be protected. I mean, how many people who are murdered in Chicago are caught? It's like 10%, less than 10%. It's less.
It has
You know,
to
and
be
if you were a
less.
person of color and you were,
I don't actually
and you
know,
were a
but
victim,
I think it's less.
like, the police they don't care.
Yeah.
But if you're a white person that is kidnapped or killed,
Well, even then, sometimes the cities, it's got too much shit going on.
yeah.
It doesn't guarantee you
Yeah.
anything.
So yeah, I mean, it's a gamble a lot about, you know, just you want to try to keep your kids safe, but there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
When schools can't even keep you safe,
Yeah.
when public places are not 100% safe, life isn't safe. You know, you have to experience the city in a whole new way. But, like, you know, violence in the suburbs is so prevalent. It's not just in the city; it's all over the United States. And it's because of, I mean, there's so many different reasons, but I think one of the positive things that, you know, that you can do, you can channel what has happened and use art as a way to heal. And that's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
And continue to tell JoJo's story about how music can transcend language and communication and bring people together. And it's a way, you know, hip hop is a way to express yourself.
And thank you for sharing that, you know, a way to cope, a way to get through, a way to
you know, I've been teaching
with the
beatbox
stress
for
and
over
trauma.
25 years to kids from all different backgrounds and ages. And it's something that inspires people, that they, you know, I've been able to be a professional beatboxer and actor and musician and teaching artist and using my platform in a positive way. I mean, I met Pinky Ring because she was doing a song about gun violence. And,
okay.
And that's how we met.
Shout
We're a
out
mutual
to
friend.
Pinky
Yes,
Ring.
shout out to Pinky Ring, you know, who's...
Let's get that Grammy.
Yeah, let's get that Grammy. You know what I'm saying? Who knows?
Well, Yuri, thanks so much again for being on the show.
Yeah.
And sharing your experiences and ways to, better things in life. And you're an amazing person. I really appreciate you coming on. I got your permission earlier to go ahead and play this song, but a song by you, right?
Yeah.
Called Sunset for JoJo.
Yeah, so this is a song that's dedicated to JoJo. It's got beatbox, it's got harmonica, people don't know. I mean, that's kind of how I got a lot of attention in the internet world going, had some videos.
What's the name of that video on YouTube?
Oh, the name of the video that went viral is Beatboxer-Harmonica Final Cut. But I've gotten a lot better on the harmonica since that time. But yeah, I'm known for the Beatboxer-Harmonica. I'm Beatboxer-Harmonica Man on Instagram, and that's how you can find out about me. But yeah, man, blues and hip hop, blues hop.
Cool.
So that's the next track.
Well, thanks again, Yuri. Here's Sunset for JoJo.
Yeah, and peace out, everybody, and stay safe in these streets of Chicago. And, put the guns down. And pick up the mic.
There you go. Hell yeah.
All right, peace.